Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be working in the kitchen. It has been really rainy the last couple days, which is really great for here because everything is super dry. So everything is getting really green and getting a really good drink of water. We decided to get in the kitchen and make some recipes that my oldest daughter wanted to try. She really wanted to try was to make, what do you want to make?
Oreos.
She really wanted to make homemade Oreos. So we're gonna do that today. And before we get on to that, we're actually gonna make some fresh bread. We'll let that rise while we're making the Oreos. So let's get started. We're gonna be making bread out of this Prairie Homestead cookbook. If you've never checked out Jill Winger, she has some really great, I think she does a podcast. I've not listened to a ton of them, but her website's really awesome and these recipes are awesome too. So a little plug for her, I guess. Anyways, we're gonna be making her crusty Dutch oven bread. This girl, do you like making bread?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you usually use this recipe?
No.
Do you usually use a recipe?
No.
But do you make good bread?
Yes.
So the first thing we had to do was collect all the ingredients. So Adeline, what did you need?
We need some warm water. We haven't gotten it yet. It would cool down. And then we need some yeast. And then a pinch of sugar to help the yeast expand faster, I think. And then a pinch of salt for flavor and flour.
And we are just using some organic all-purpose white flour. I actually ran out of the flour that I usually use, and so I had to go buy a small package at the store here, but my order comes next week, so we'll have a bunch of flour then.
First, we're gonna grab 1.5 cups of warm water. It should be warm enough that it will activate the yeast, but it shouldn't be too warm that you can't touch it with your finger. Next, we're gonna add half a teaspoon of active dry yeast. Then we'll add a pinch of sugar to help the yeast rise. Next, we're going to add a teaspoon and a half of salt. Next, we're gonna add 3 cups of flour. Now we are going to mix it until it's incorporated.
Okay, and this dough is a stickier dough, so it's not going to form a stiff ball. So this dough is definitely a stickier dough, so don't be surprised if it's not coming together in a ball. This one doesn't. And then typically you would let it rise for 3 to 5 hours or a lengthier time. It kind of develops the flavor a bit better, but I don't have that time today, so I'm actually gonna put it on my stove in a bowl, an oiled bowl, and I'm gonna let it rise there until it doubles in size, and then I'll just make my bread. If you have time for the lengthier rise, it doesn't have to be in such a warm location. See this dough, see how sticky it is? It's really quite sticky, but it comes out really nicely. So I just have this glass bowl here, and I'm gonna put some olive oil in it, just a little bit. You don't want it to get super oily, but you also don't want it to stick. And like I said, it's a stickier dough. Just push it around in there. When you make bread normally yourself, is it this sticky, yes?
No.
No, it's not this sticky. Okay, now we can get on to what this girl really wanted to make. What did you want to make?
Oreos.
Yeah, we're gonna try and make some homemade Oreos. So we're just gonna clean up a little bit here so we can start on the Oreo. I don't like to move on to another project when my kitchen is a mess. So we have to clean up one to do another. All right, ready? The recipe we're gonna use is just one that I found from my searches online. If it's good, I will link it down below so you guys can try it. If it's not, well, we'll have to try it on another time. Anyways, we're gonna collect the ingredients and then we'll get started. One thing I forgot to mention too is if you do make bread, when you let it rise, you really should cover it too. It appears that we have an extra helper, so this could be interesting. Okay, so we collected our ingredients. Alan, you want to tell us what we need?
We need flour.
Okay, now you want to tell them why it's in an ice cream bucket?
The flour's in an ice cream bucket because
It's just where we store it.
cocoa powder, preferably unsweetened. We're using Hershey's cocoa powder.
I think cocoa powder is always unsweetened, isn't it?
But that's
You
sweet.
could probably pick out
Mama,
it sweetened.
last time we were making brownies with that.
We did make brownies with that before.
You need some baking soda.
I want
Are you just doing the ingredients for the cookie part?
Yes.
Okay,
I want my nine.
Can you not
then
have
go
your
find
nugget?
it.
Some salt, half a cup of butter, sugar, and brown sugar.
And brown sugar, and we make our own brown sugar. I will try and link that video of my other daughter who taught us how to make brown sugar, and you can check that out.
And an egg.
And an egg. So these are the ingredients that you need just to make the cookie part. So we're gonna start with that.
First, we're gonna put in some flour.
That's a huge flower.
It's a huge
Yes.
Huge.
1¼ cup. So we accidentally put in the flour before the sugar and butter. So
We need the mixer for the butter and the sugar. So we just went ahead and put the flour in a separate bowl because for some reason we didn't read the directions, and so we forgot about mixing the butter and the sugar first in the mixer before you add the dry ingredients. So we're just gonna put all the dry ingredients in this bowl, and then we'll do the butter and sugar, and then we'll add the dry ingredients.
half a cup of cocoa powder.
Woo! You got it. Good job. That works. Okay.
Put in a teaspoon of baking soda. An 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt to put in. This is all the dry
So we're gonna
ingredients.
set that aside.
Next, you add 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. You don't have some?
Yeah.
And after that, we put in 1/4 cup of brown sugar.
Addie, did you make the brown sugar?
Yeah.
Not this
Shake it
time?
in your hand. There we go. Next, we're gonna put in a half cup of butter. Now what do we do with debug?
Mixes it.
Next, you're going to cream your butter and sugar together.
So you finished creaming it.
We finished creaming it, so now we're going to add the milk.
Why don't you lift it up and let's see what it is. She's gonna crack the egg in there. We're just gonna put some vanilla bean paste in here because we are out of vanilla. So one of the things I'd like to make sometime soon is vanilla. We were gifted some vanilla at Christmas time and it was so good, and so I'm hoping to do that soon. Until then, we have some vanilla bean paste that we're gonna add instead of vanilla extract for this.
Now that I've got the egg and vanilla mixed into the sugar and butter, I'm gonna put in our dry ingredients.
Your dry ingredients, yep.
Now we are going to mix together the powdered ingredients,
The dry ingredients.
the dry ingredients with the wet ingredients. Does it smell nice?
Now we're gonna clean up our table here, and then we're going to get the pans out so we can make the Oreo cookie part of the cookies. We save all our eggshells for our chickens. We put them in our chicken bucket, crunched up, and then we feed them back to the chickens because it gives them extra calcium and it's good for their eggs. go. We've got our dough here, and we're gonna take it out. And then we're gonna form cookies, and it's supposed to make 15 Oreos. So that means we need 30 cookies. So let's chop it in half, and you try and make 15, and I'll try and make 15. As you see, Evelyn's rolling these into balls. So we need them all to be in a shape of ball, and then afterwards we're going to flatten them so that they're like the Oreo cookie. Remember, when you're making cookies, you want them to all kind of be roughly the same size so that they bake evenly. If you don't, some will be a bit crunchier and some won't be done enough. And when I was reading the recipe, it said not to overbake these, so we're going to make sure we take them out a little bit underdone so that they can continue to kind of bake as they're out of the oven. Now we're going to put them in our preheated oven. Since we put in 2 pans, one on top of each other, halfway through our cooking time, we're just going to swap them so that the one on the bottom doesn't burn. We'll check on them after 10 minutes. Meanwhile, here's the bread. It is rising. It kind of looks a big blob of dough, but it will turn into a nice loaf in a little bit. While we wait for the cookies to finish baking, we're going to make the filling. Yeah. And one of the things the recipe says is if you want a more traditional Oreo filling, like the cream filling, you can use shortening, but I don't like to use shortening in any of my baking, and so you could probably substitute it with coconut oil or something like that. But we are going to substitute it with cream cheese. It's suggested that you could substitute the shortening for cream cheese, and we thought a cream cheese filling might be kind of tasty, so we're going to go ahead and do that.
So now we're going to make our filling. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of butter, 4 ounces of cream cheese.
So that's like half a package, because a package of cream cheese is 8 ounces, I believe. So we're going to use half of a package, which is perfect because that's what we have.
And 1 3/4 cups of powdered sugar. If you had liquid vanilla, you would put in 1 teaspoon, but we have vanilla seeds, so
Vanilla bean paste.
the vanilla bean paste, we're going to put that in. First, we're going to put in the 1 3/4 cups of powdered sugar. Then we put in our 1/4 cup of butter, and we mix that together.
Now, we're not making enough for it to matter, but if you were gonna mix a whole bunch of powdered sugar in your mixer, you probably would want to cover it with a towel or something, because it will make a cloud of powdered sugar. It will go everywhere, and it's such a mess.
Now we're going to add our 4 ounces of cream cheese. While we're mixing it, we're going to add our vanilla.
Now go.
I can say, you want to give it a little taste and see if it's good?
No, don't stick your fingers into it.
Is it good?
We should mix it a teeny little bit.
The timer just went off for our cookies, so we're just gonna check and see how they are doing. Remember, we don't want to overbake them because they will get too crunchy, and they kind of continue to cook a bit more after you take them out. So it's okay if they're a little bit soft. I think I'm gonna go ahead and give them just a couple more minutes, and then we'll pull them out.
Let's pull out from this.
They smell good, and they look done. Evelyn is taking them off the pan and putting them on a cooling rack. I don't often do this with all cookies, but I think with these ones, it's really important because they need to be completely cool before you put the frosting in the cream filling because it will melt and it will make a mess. So we want them to be completely cool. While we're waiting for those to cool, we will get our bread going. I'm about to put the Dutch oven into the oven to heat up. In this cookbook, she suggests heating up your Dutch oven to 475 for about 45 minutes before you're gonna bake your bread. I don't know why, but it kind of weirds me out. So I put it in to heat it up, but not quite as hot. And then I plunk it in there and cover it up, and it still does a really good job. I've still made really good bread that way. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. The idea of getting your Dutch oven warm makes it kind of like a steam chamber as it's cooking, and it makes for a really chewy dough, which I find that what I do makes a really chewy dough too. I just don't like getting it quite as hot because I have this feeling that my Dutch oven is going to break or something. So I just don't like to heat it up quite as high as she suggests. So this dough is really pretty sticky, and honestly I think this might have been more sticky than I'm used to, but it did make a decent loaf of bread. It's the kind of bread you'd eat with a warm bowl of soup or a bowl of stew or something on a cold day. Now back to finishing up these cookies. So they're all the way cool, so we're just gonna take, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon worth of the frosting, the filling, and spread it over the cookies, and then we'll sandwich them together with another cookie.
They're sweet.
Are they good?
Yeah, they're better than the store-bought ones.
You think
They're
so?
too sweet.
They're a little bit too sweet.
Well, the ones with more frosting are more sweet.
I think they're really good. Maybe you need to eat them with a glass of milk.
Okay, and then there's 4 fancy ones.
It's pretty good. I'm gonna have a pretty good sugar rush today. Now that my Dutch oven has heated for a while here, I'm gonna take my dough that I put on parchment paper, and I'm gonna plunk it right into the Dutch oven with the parchment paper because I know this parchment paper is oven safe. So I'm gonna put it in there and put the lid back on and slide it into the oven, and I'm going to let it cook for 30 minutes with the lid on. So the bread wasn't quite done, and we had to rush out of the house because we were volunteering to make breakfast for 300 people. So the girls and I were out busy working, and I had to leave the bread in the hands of my husband. So it got a little bit darker than I would have liked. After the 30 minutes, you take the lid off for 15 minutes, and then it's done. I think I would have taken it out a bit sooner had I been home, but this bread still turned out really great, and we enjoyed it with our dinner.